Greetings once again from Revelation 14:1 Ministry out here in Santa Rosa, the great state of California in the USA. Our ministry is dedicated to writing the truth that has been trampled down by Satan himself during the dark ages, and we are still digging our way out of all those darkness. And in most of the interpretations of the Bible, we carry forward from those times till today. And this ministry is determined to be able to bring back the truth of the Bible. There's one topic that is discussed a lot today about the indigenous of the land. That's what we will try and open up today in our study, the indigenous of the land. We may only do the first part today, and we will begin with a definition from Wikipedia about the word indigenous. It states, indigenous peoples, also known as First Peoples. I'm sure you've heard those phrases a lot in today's news. Aboriginal people, native peoples, or autochthonous peoples are ethnic groups who are descendants from and identify with the original inhabitants of a given region. So these are descendants of the original occupiers of whatever land, whichever part of the world we will be talking about. In contrast to groups that have settled, occupied, or colonized the area more recently. So these are the original occupiers of the land, and they are called the indigenous of that land. Groups are usually described as indigenous, see this is when they maintain traditions or other aspects of an early culture that is associated with a given region. Not all indigenous people share this characteristic, sometimes having adopted substantial elements of a colonizing culture, such as dress, religion, or language. Indigenous peoples may be settled in a given locale, region, or exhibit a nomadic lifestyle across a large territory, but they are generally historically associated with a specific territory. So the original settlers of a certain land or territory are the indigenous of that land, on which they depend. Indigenous societies are found in every inhabited climate zone and continents of the world. So you'll find these indigenous people everywhere you go. Everywhere you go. And also, we should be noting down that the fact that most of these indigenous in some countries have been wiped out by the settlers who came in later. So those are things that affect these indigenous people. They have been influenced by the new settlers. They bring in their new tradition, they bring in their new ways of life, and have sort of evolved the culture from their original to something that they've adopted over time with the new settlers coming in. So, what does the Bible say about this topic, the indigenous of the lands? We'll start right from the beginning, creation, with Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve, they were the indigenous of the Garden of Eden. Their story is right there in Genesis chapter 1, how they originally inhabited this land known in the Bible as the Garden of Eden. Their descendants occupied the lands outside of Eden, up to the floods of Noah's day, around 1600 years from creation. So we know the story of Adam and Eve. They were removed from the Garden of Eden. Why? Because of sin. They chose to sin. So they could not inhabit this perfect place that God had created for them. So what God did is remove them out of the Garden of Eden. And they begin to inhabit areas around that for 1600 years. Adam and their descendants occupied the land around Eden. Now, we are asking, there's a lot of talks about indigenous, the indigenous people. They have their own rights. That's made into laws by the United Nations. So we have to question, who are these, the indigenous of which land? If we go back to the Bible, we will know that from Noah onwards would be the appropriate place to start in trying to identify the indigenes of the various lands as they left the ark outside and begin to occupy the land. We know that the population of the world had grown from creation, from Adam and Eve, into millions of people. But God destroyed the whole world. And what happened? Only eight people survived that. So now, when we think back, now the whole world is being populated by people. So if we think along the lines of indigenous, then we will say, who were the original inhabitants of the lands all over the world, in order to identify who are the indigenous people. So we have to go back to Noah. Noah, the boat rested after a year floating around in the flood. 1 year later, it had rested on this Mount Ararat. But remember, this was a completely different world from the one that Jesus had created. Why do we say that? Because of what happened in the floods. It says that the fountains of water from underneath erupted. So the original lands that were there, created by God Himself, Jesus Christ, is no longer there. Things have been moved around. We also know that what happened, that the moon was switched off. When Christ created this earth, He created the moon and the sun. Both of them were emitting lights. They were light bearers of this earth. But after the flood, the moon was switched off. Or before the flood. And that caused, the gravitational pull of the moon and the sun was so upset that it upset the balance of things. Gravitation, balance was upset by that. And things changed over this earth. So forget about Eden. You won't find Eden now. Forget about that original place that Adam and Eve lived, the perfect earth. Now it's time after Noah. And as we know it, it's something that we'll see in the world map, in the globe that we usually study. That's the earth that appeared after the floods. So we know that the ark rested on Mount Ararat. And there are evidence that of the ark that can be found, that had been found by archaeologists. So, who are the indigenous of which land? What does the Bible say on the issue? Let's go back to Genesis chapter 9, verse 1. And it says, "And God blessed Noah and his sons, and said unto them, Be fruitful, multiply, and replenish the earth." So the same thing that was told to Adam and Eve is now being told to Noah. Why? Because the earth, however big it was, is now, there's no more. It's only 8 of them that occupy this whole world. So God is telling Noah, replenish. You multiply and replenish this earth. Verse 2 says, "And the fear of you and the dread of you shall be upon every beast of the earth, and upon every fowl of the air, upon all that move upon the earth, and upon all the fishes of the sea. Into your hands are they delivered." So God gave Noah the power to control all these animals. "Every moving thing that liveth shall be meat for you, even as the green herbs have I given you all these things." So you see, before the earth, before the flood, God had specifically told Noah what to eat. Fruits and nuts and vegetables. After the flood, He said, anything that moves is for you to eat. But that's not all. We will have to study a little deeper, and we'll see the classification of whatever moves. So not everything that moves was, that's a different study altogether. This is the area that Noah and his family settled in. Mount Ararat, that's where the ark settled, and they begin to occupy this area around Mount Ararat. That's where they settled down and began to multiply, and we began to farm the land and became useful and began to spread out. So these were the original area that was occupied by humanity during that time. So we'll see that most of our studies will be around that area, because that's where Noah and his family began to start moving out. That may have been the center of the earth as we see it. So let's study the Bible records. chapter 10 of Genesis, verse 1 says, "Now these are the generations of the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And unto them were sons born after the flood." So Noah, when Noah, during the flood, in the boat, in that ark, was only Noah, his wife, his son Shem and his wife, Ham and his wife, and Japheth with his wife. So there's only 8 of them. That's the original. We can all trace our lineage back to either of these 3 and Noah. And it says, the sons of Japheth. Japheth was the eldest. Please remember these names, especially these 3 names. Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshach, and Tiras. That's the sons of the first, or the eldest son, Japheth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 of them. And the sons of Gomer, 1 of them, Ashkenaz, Riphath, and Togmar. He had 3 sons. Gomer, one of the sons of Japheth, or grandson of Noah. And the sons of Javan, the other son. If you just look back, the sons of Japheth are Gomer, Magog, Madai, and Javan. So it's already talked about Gomer here. Gomer was the first son. Next, he's talking about Javan. He left out those 2. And it says, and the sons of Javan, one of the other sons, are Elisha, Tashish, Kittim, and Dodanim. By these were the isles of the Gentiles, divided in their lands, every one after his tongue. That's what happened to Javan. His sons were given the isles of the Gentiles. They were given to them. You go and occupy the isles of the Gentiles. So that's Javan. Moses, when writing in Genesis, spoke about only these 2 sons of Japheth, Gomer and Javan, in detail. Oh, the other sons are there. They had other sons too, and they multiplied. But Moses chose just to elaborate on 2 of the Japheth's son. Now let's look at the other son of Noah, Ham. You remember Ham? Ham was the father of Cush, Mizraim, Phut, and Canaan. Few names there that ring a bell. Cush and also Canaan. So those are the sons of Ham. Ham was the second son. Japheth was the eldest, then Ham, and then now let's look at the 3rd son. Oh no, before we move into the 3rd son of Noah, Cush, or Ham, one of his sons was Cush. Moses elaborated a little on Cush. Let's read what Moses said. Cush, sons were Seba, and Havilah, and Sabta, and Ramah, and Sabtika, and the sons of Ramah, Cush's grandson, Sheba, Dedan, and also Cush begat Another son was specially mentioned, the son of Cush, Nimrod. And Nimrod, children are Ashur and Ashan. Ashur and Resen. Nimrod. Consider that name, Nimrod. Let's go on to the third son of
Ham.
Noah. Oh, sorry. The third other son of Ham that Moses chose to elaborate on. Ham's son, Canaan. Verse 15 of chapter 10 of the book of Genesis says this, and Canaan begat Sidon, his firstborn, and Heth. So special mentions of these names. Jebusite, and the Amorites, and the Girgazites, and the Havites, and the Arkites, and the Sinite, and Arvadite, and the Zemarite, and the Hamathite. And afterward were the families of the Canaanites spread abroad. And the border of the Canaanites was from Sidon, very specific, to Gerar, and to Gaza, and into Sodom and Gomorrah, and Admah, and Zeboim, and even unto Lasha. So these were the descendants of Ham through Canaan. And when you read those names, the Jebusite, Amorites, Hivite, Arkite, all these group of people were occupying Canaan when Israelites came back from Egypt. They had to overcome all these people. So they were still the same group of people, same root, but these people they were all the original occupiers of Canaan. Today, that war is still going on. The Palestinians are claiming that they were the original, they are the indigenous of the land. They are not wrong. They are really the original occupiers of the land. They are the indigenous of the land. The third son of Noah. The three sons are Japheth, Ham, and Shem. One other thing I want to mention about Ham was that he was the one that was cursed. Remember? After Noah, after the ark settled on Mount Ararat and they began to live around that area, Noah planted a vineyard and he made wine, and he drank wine one night and was so drunk that he slept in his tent naked. In came Ham and saw his father lying there in his nudity. And what happened? He went back to his brothers. Who are his brothers? Shem and Japheth. Shem and Japheth. And he started laughing. And he said, "Come, let's go see our father. He's drunk." And the two were so horrified by his actions that they took sheet to cover him, and they went backwards and covered him. They did not want to see him in his nakedness. When Noah woke up, he heard about this, and he cursed. Who was it?
Ham.
Ham. for doing so. So Ham and his, and you know when he pronounced the curse, he did not use the name of Ham. He said Canaan, his youngest son. He will be a slave to Shem and to Japheth. So the curse was in Ham's lineage. Shem's descendant. Shem was the youngest of the sons. Unto Shem also, the father of all the children of Eber. We should remember that name, Eber, the brother of Japheth. So Shem was the brother of Japheth, but he was the father of Eber. The children of Shem and are Elam, Ashur, Aphradax, Lud, and Amar. Those are the children of Shem. Where is Eber there? Eber is not mentioned there. But look, if we continue to read on that verse, it should say in verse 23, and the children of Aram, one of the Shem's sons, Uz, Hul, Getha, and Mash. And Aphradax begat Salah, and Salah begat Abar. That's where Abar comes in, from the lineage of Shem. And unto Eber were born 2 sons, and the name of one was Peleg. For in his days was the earth divided, and his brother's name was Joktan. So it's going right down. Why is Moses more interested in this lineage? If we continue on that, sorry, I forgot to write where I got this from. This is from the First Chronicles. This is from First Chronicles, chapter 1. And First Chronicles lists out this person, Eber. Remember I told you about Eber? He was mentioned here in verse 21, Genesis chapter 10, verse 21. Unto Shem also, the father of all the children of Eber. So we think there that Eber was one of his sons. No, Eber was one of his great-great-grandson. And now, in Chronicles, we are looking at Eber from the lineage of Shem. And unto Eber were born 2 sons. He had 2 sons. One was, the brother's name was Joktan. And Joktan, one of the sons, Joktan had sons Almodad and Shelef and Hamaz and Jerah. But Hadoram also, and Uzal and Dikla, and Ibal, and Abinmael and Sheba, and Ophir and Havilah and Jobab. All these were the sons of Joktan. So how many? About 10 or they were the sons of this person, Joktan. Shem, Aphradax, Shelah. Eber, Peleg, Rui. Sherug, Nahor, Terah, and then who? Abraham. Chronicles was trying to list the lineage of Abraham back to Eber. If it's going back to Eber, who else is there? Shem. And Shem's father is Noah. So we can trace Abraham through Shem, the youngest son, back to Noah. So that was why Eber was, the name was very important to remember. So we see, in order to know the indigenous of the land, we will need to go back and study the descendants of her. So any land, anywhere in the world, we need to do this. So an Old Testament map is right here. We want to quickly just have a look at all these people that we've mentioned. There's so many names to remember, but I don't expect you to remember all that. But we have people who've already studied this, and someone has put it on a map like this. So you see, this is the area that we're talking about, around the Mediterranean Sea. You see there are names in green, there's some names in black, and there are some names in red. 3 colors. And who do you link back with the 3 colors? The 3 sons of Noah. 3 sons of Noah. And the first son was Japheth. Remember? Japheth. And Japheth, if you remember the names, one of his sons was Javan. One of his sons was Tubal. So it's in black. When you see this map, it's color-coded. When you see the names in black, those are the descendants of who? Of Japheth, the first son of Noah, the oldest son of Noah. And then you come to red. You see Lud, Aram, Aphodax, Uz. Those names, does it click? We just read through. Who were their father? It was Shem. Remember? We traced Abraham back to Aphodax. Aphodax, the great-grandfather of Abraham. So red showed the areas that they were occupied by the descendants of Shem. So they were the original settlers of this land. They are the indigenous of that land. And then you have green. Green? Read the names. Heth, Sinite, Hamathites, Avadite, Zemarite, Arkite, Sadan, Havite, Girgazites, Jebusites, Amorites. Who were they the descendant of? They were the sons of Ham. And see where they occupied originally? What area is this? No, it's not Egypt. It's Canaan. Egypt is well down here. This is Canaan. So this was the promised land to Abraham. See, Abraham came from here. Afazad. Yeah, we have to put this picture in our mind. Abraham came from here, so this was where he was originally from. He is an indigenous of this land here. But God promised him, wherever you go, come out of there. Come out of there. Wherever you put your foot, set your foot on, will be for you and your seeds. And he promised them, he came around this area, Canaan. And God said, that will be yours. You see? But the original or indigenous of the land are the sons of Ham. The sons of Ham. So, see, the Bible is telling us a lot of things. When we are hearing about the conflict in the Middle East, about this very land we are talking about. This is the history. It takes you back to Noah. And we know that the Palestinians are saying the right thing. They are the indigenous of this land. They were the original settlers. But when we read the Bible, we know that it was given by God, who created this whole earth. And who did he give it to? Abraham and his seed. The indigenous of the land. Okay? Does that bring out a much clearer picture? Some other Bible scholar divided the world up into these three areas. How many sons did Noah have? 3, represented by the 3 colors. What are the colors there on the map? Green,
navy
blue, and
gold.
Yellow. Green represents whose descendant? Shem. If you watch properly, you think about the world, that is what we call today the Western world. The Western world. Europe and Northern America. North America. The yellow, what do you call that today? The Eastern Bloc. East, Russia, all those India, China, the East. And if you look straight beneath that, who comes under that? The Pacific Islands, the Oceania. So we are in the Eastern Bloc as Fijians. If this assumption is right, then it means yellow. Who is our descendant? Japheth. We have to prove that. But according to this map, the Eastern Bloc people are the sons of Japheth, the eldest son of Noah. The green, or the Western world, are the sons of Shem, the youngest son of Noah. And Africa, North Africa, right up to the Mediterranean, are the sons of Ham. So, we could, these are some, I'm not saying that this is correct, but it gives us a true picture of, a better picture of how the world was divided up. Okay? God told Noah after the flood, go, multiply, and inhabit the whole earth. And Noah did just that. Look at where his descendants went to. That's where we will end today. This is not the end of the study of the indigenous of the lands. This is only part 1. We will dig a little deeper. I myself am interested in how my forefathers came to occupy the land where I come from, the Fiji Islands, right there in the Pacific, a tiny dot. If they all came from Europe, from Mount Ararat, my forefathers somehow ended up on the island of Fiji. How did that happen? You will have to trace through the words of God, through the Bible, how did that happen? And we will try and dig a little deeper into that in next week's study. Thank you, and we praise God for enlightening us that everything we want to know is already in the Bible. We just have to spend time to study it. Let's pray.